I watched the best documentary last night on Paul Anka's life. Paul Anka is one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my career, in my life.
He has had one of the most amazing careers in the history of show business.
You think about it, that what's the biggest group ever? It's the Beatles. They were big for 7 years. Paul Anka was big for 70 years. He has charted every decade from the time he was 16 years old. He has been on every show, done every concert, been a huge staple in Las Vegas. He has written some of the greatest hits, not just for himself, but for people like Frank Sinatra and Tom Jones and Michael Jackson and others. And this documentary encapsulates this incredible life.
What you're saying, it was well over time for someone to put together Paul Anka His Way, which is the documentary streaming right now on HBO Max. And we are honored, as always, whenever we get to spend some time with the iconic Paul Anka, and he is joining us now. Paul, welcome back to TMZ Live.
Thank you, Harvey. Charles, good to see you again.
It's so good seeing you. So there's so much to talk about. I mean, the fact that they show you, Paul, you know, at 15 and 16 years old on the Ed Sullivan Show with these girls, Beatles-like, screaming, crying in the audience. And then you see what you did in Tokyo last year, and you have some of those same people screaming and crying. and it's just amazing to see you. I think it was your son-in-law, Jason Bateman, who said that there is no one who has had the longevity of Paul Anka. You can't dispute that.
I won't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just remarkable. You know, the thing that I wanted to ask you, that I was thinking, oh, I'm going to ask him, and then at the very end of the documentary, they ask you the question. You talked about you haven't planted the flag at the top of the mountain. Right. I'm wondering, is this documentary the flag on the top of the mountain?
No, it's close, but it isn't. Right now, Harvey, I'm doing what I love to do, still performing, but we're developing. I guess this might be a kind of exclusive. And as of yesterday, we signed the writer for the Broadway show, and I'll be doing a Broadway show. Hope to have it ready in about a year and a half. That starts at age 15 on up, and that's might be the flag in the mountain if we get some legs under it. Yes.
Huh. Wow. You know, that's funny you'd say that, because I was watching the documentary and I was thinking, this is a story that your music could certainly be turned into one of these Broadway productions that have been so successful. So congrats that you are putting that together. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. The thing that was great, Paul, about the documentary, obviously there's a lot that we learn about My Way. I actually have a question that I didn't even know that this applied here, but I learned this about My Way in the documentary. But also, the fact that, what was it like for you? I just kept thinking, what Harvey made a reference to this, seeing those videos of you at 15 and holding an entire theater, just everyone was captive. What was it like for you to look back at that now, 70 years later, to see that? What was it like for you to look at that footage and to know that you're still performing?
Well, you're obviously a little wiser than you were as a kid. And when I look back at it, you got to feel grateful, you know, because the world is changing so rapidly in a different form. To be still a part of it and doing something that, you know, I do it because I love it. And that black hole between me and my audience, where I have no sense of how my music is affecting people, it all comes to fruition in a sense when I'm on stage and they're in front of me. Case in point, a few days ago, I'm in Mexico City, and I've been going down to South America for years, as other countries, and there's 10,000 people in a stadium, and because of TikTok and whatever, I've got the same kind of energy in front of me. I've got a bunch of young teenagers with albums and whatever, and I look at it, and it's with some humble humor, and also saying, wow, this is just, how did I get so lucky all these years later to feel the same kind of energy? You know, it's a mix of people. And when I look back, it's very cathartic, and it was doing the documentary because they come up with footage that I hadn't seen before, obviously. And it takes you right back to those moments of creativity, what you were thinking, how frightened you were, all those feelings of was I going to last? How do I deal with this? Fame is a dangerous tool. And the same kind of energies around today for a lot of young new artists. But back then, pop music was in its infancy stage, and we were shifting the culture back then. Me and all the young teen idols. It was the first of all that, so it was very new to us, as opposed to today, where everybody's kind of somewhat maybe jaded, but aware of what the dynamics are of how to deal with it. And when I look at everybody back then, we came from humble backgrounds. None of us were from wealthy backgrounds. We weren't sophisticated, but we've been given this gift, and now we're crawling along this passage of success that's given to us, wondering, when will we be wise enough or have our heads together to deal with it? So it was a very cathartic jolt looking at all of that once they put it all together. And, I thank the Caroline Kimmel, our producer, and Majo and Laura, our producers, who, I didn't want any credits of any kind. And the only parameters I set forth with them was I don't want a bunch of talking heads in there, 20 of them, just saying how this and this. I said, I want you to deal with the music and educate, in a sense, to the people my real passage from a creative person as a kid to where I am today.
Just two things. One is, Irving Azoff was so right. I mean, it is stunning how good your voice is at your age, Paul. I mean, you sound like a 35-year-old, and it's unbelievable. And Irving said this, and I was just stunned because I know you and I've listened to you, but just to hear all of it in that documentary was stunning to me.
Yeah.
The thing I want to talk about is, as I watched the documentary, because, a lot of people can achieve fame, but most people can't achieve longevity. And when I watched how you did it, it just made me think of what's going on right now where people are worried. AI is going to take over my job. What do I do if I'm 35 years old? You saw all of these sea changes, from the Beatles coming to other things happening, and you were able to pivot. And the takeaway watching that documentary, I think, applies to everybody's life today, because everybody needs to pivot, not just singers.
Yeah. You have to look. I can't say that I could have forecasted everything. I think I looked at my life back then in 5-year increments. Today, probably a little less. But I just realized I had to stay focused, Harvey and Charles, as to who I was. As you said, I was kind of responsible for the Beatles because I knew them. I met them in Europe. I knew they were going to hit over here. My agents, Normie Weiss, Sid Bernstein, I'd come back and say, there's these guys, they go, what do you mean Beatles? We weren't in a media-driven society back then. So I felt all of that coming. Thus I said, I'm going to go move to Italy. I'm going to start recording in German and French. And I got to keep my writing gravitas because I didn't know that I could continue to have hits myself. So it's just kind of staying focused. I can't take full credit for anything because ultimately it's a team effort of people that if you put the right ones around you, you're going to achieve what you want. Success has many fathers. And I just went from decade to decade with questions, with some apprehension, trying to stay current and true to myself. And you roll the dice. And as far as the voice thing, that's the important thing. It's beyond that. I think that I've always been some kind of a health conscious freak, because I watched it all with the Rat Pack and the mob and, the drinking and the smoking and, great. They were a lot of fun. They did their thing. But I realized that, ultimately you're going to pay for how you behave early in your life. So I kind of watched, what I ate. I exercise. I do all that kind of stuff. And I took care of my voice because that's all that I had in having a bad voice. I had this squeaky little teenage voice that was going to change, which hadn't changed. And I said, when it changes, I may be out of business. So I was very conscious of the fact of staying healthy and taking singing lessons and knowing that without that, and we see the landscape of today, unfortunately, a lot of great artists, they've abused themselves and they just don't have that vocal capability or physical capability because they really didn't
Yeah.
take care of themselves. And that's all that it was. And, you know, look, this universe now is opening up in my mind. There's something going on out there. And that whole spiritual thing for me and how we're here and what's going on has to be respected because we're now at a real juncture of major, major change that we're going to be very aware of very quickly.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, Paul, one of the huge revelations for me about My Way in this documentary, and I'm going to ask you if you can remember this. I knew that, obviously, by the way, for anyone out there who doesn't know, Paul Anka wrote My Way. Yes, you know Frank Sinatra sang, and a lot of people, but Paul wrote it.
As for Sinatra's retirement song.
Right, exactly. And by the way, thank you for writing it, by the way, because of that song, that's the reason that I went out of my way to see Frank Sinatra perform within the last 5 years of his life.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that you purchased the melody. You said you were in Europe somewhere doing shows, and you heard this other song, and you purchased the melody.
Very, very simple. I was living an international life. I loved France, Italy, and I'd go over there every year, and I'd rent a home, and I knew the language. I spoke it from Canada. I was simply in Mougins, southern France, and listening to a radio at my house. And I heard this melody on the radio. It was a so-so hit locally, not unlike Rock Swing's Deviating, where I could hear other songs a certain way. I said, well, that's interesting, but not that way. I went back to Paris. Now, this was early 60s, and I looked at who had the song, and it was people that I knew. There was a small community of music people back then. And I went over to the office, and I didn't purchase anything, actually. I just said, you know, I wasn't buying the pyramids. It was just a song.
Well, that's my question, Paul. Do you remember how much you paid for that melody?
No, Charles, I didn't pay for anything. They gave it to me.
Oh, he just gave it to you?
Oh my God.
I heard you say that it wasn't like buying the pyramids, but I thought you paid something for it. He gave it to
20
you?
minutes. They just gave me the rights all over the world to do whatever I want. They had no idea what I had in mind.
They must be kicking themselves.
Well, you definitely worked it over a lot.
Charles Harvey, they are so thrilled in France. God bless them. They have made a fortune on that song. If it had stayed a domestic song, that'd be, you know, we're talking peanuts. Now they're, you know, it's you know, I humbly submit everybody's doing well. And when Macron gave me that award last year, no, I didn't pay a cent. I just took a 2-page contract saying I had the rights to do whatever I want. I came home. Sinatra inspired me because he was retiring. I've told that story to you guys where I just went home and said, wow, he's quitting. I got to write something for him. And 2 months later, he calls me from a studio and says, listen to this. I heard it for the first time over the phone. It became such a hit for him. He stayed 10 more years.
Wow.
Okay, so last thing.
Yeah.
How excited was I to see the TMZ got in the documentary at the end, because we're the ones that told you, hey, when This Is It came out with Michael Jackson, it was your song, and you didn't even know it.
You tipped me off. I had no idea when they called what it was about when you called me, and I had no idea because when I started it with Michael, who I spent time with, and I qualified the fact that he was a very talented, amazing artist, and I loved working with him. But I started, my original title was I Never Heard a Single Word About You. I never heard. So when I got the call, I said, I don't know anything called This Is It. And as it evolved and I started looking into it and I heard it, you know, when they found it in the drawer, the first line of the song is, This Is It, Here I Stand. I said, it's lawyer time, right?
It's lawyer time. I remember it. I remember. So listen, I got to tell you something. I got to tell you something, Paul. And it's so interesting that we're doing this on TMZ Live right now, because what I'm going to tell you evolved from TMZ Live. Our 20-year anniversary of TMZ was last month. And the single day I can point out, which was the best day I've had at TMZ, was the night you took me to Capitol Records and let me do My Way as you produced it. and it
Using
was
the same microphone Frank did.
And Paul, I don't know about you. In my life, things blur together where I kind of can't remember. Did this happen with that, or did that happen with this? That night, I remember so clearly, and it stands out as the best night I have had at TMZ in the last 20 years. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, and I mean that.
Hey, Harvey, to make anyone happy is a big deal for me, and especially you. You guys have been just so fair and so good and gracious with me, that to see your happiness and to see you deviate out of what you do day to day and the look on your face and the way that you were so into it. Well, just look. I mean, to be able to capture that was such a kick for me to watch. Well, you guys called me. They were teasing the hell out of you.
Yeah,
remember?
it was on TMZ Live. That's what happened.
That's right. It was
And I
on
said,
TMZ Live.
I can make him sound good.
It might be your greatest accomplishment in your storied career, Paul, that
I'll
you turned this
accept
guy
that.
into a pop star.
I'll accept it, Charles.
Paul,
thank you so much.
Honestly, I love you, Paul. I just think you are an amazing, talented, incredible human being. Thank you, and thank you for the documentary.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Charles.
It is.
Thank you.
It is streaming now on HBO Max. As Sammy Davis Jr. said in the documentary, the guy cares about his art, and that's why he's lasted.
There is one other thing I want to get into, which you alluded to in one of the interviews.
Sure.
Sinatra schlong. Well, you said it.
No, Harvey. No, I have absolutely I was doing an interview and a great interview, Nikki, the Post, and it was wonderful, and she was amazing. And she brought up to me, what you don't see because it's clipped. I was talking about how I started with them and hung out in the steam rooms, and she said to me, "Well, I want to know something. Tell me about it. Is it what they say it is?" Now, you didn't see that. Now, it threw me. I said, "Well, what?" She said, "Well, you know." Now, I said, "Oh." Now, I predicated what I said on, I'm not really revealing anything new. Ava Gardner had the great line a few years ago that's been all over the place when they asked about Frank Sinatra in bed with her and what was he like. And she said, he weighs 120 pounds and 20 pounds of it is his dick. I said that knowing that it's out there. I wasn't really any new revelation. And then I said to Nikki, the journalist, I said, "So what does that do for you?" And that was
She said it's a headline, is what it is.
I said, it came out of nowhere, and I just put it on top of Ava Gardner with that classic line. The rest of them, the rest of the 20 pounds is his dick.
Oh, God. Paul, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming
Paul.
on. We so appreciate it.
Love hanging
Thank
with
you,
you, man.
guys. Take care, man. Thank
See
you.
ya.